Welcome to Coffee Chat. We have a somewhat of a segmented program today, an interview to start with, and after an event that's taking place in Neepawa here today, February the 12th. My guest today is Enver Naidoo. He's the CEO of the Westman Immigrant Services, similar to what Don Walmsley is here in Neepawa. So welcome, Enver. Nice to have you here today.
Thank you, Dave. Great to be here.
Yes. Well, first of all, Enver, maybe tell us a little bit about your background. I know you're an immigrant yourself that came to Canada, and you've been around the world a lot, you were telling me. So just, a short capsule of your background, please.
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, I am an immigrant as well as a newcomer to Manitoba. Like many immigrants, looking for better quality of life. We come from all different walks and backgrounds. Myself personally, I originally am from South Africa.
South Africa.
And I left, shortly after apartheid ended. Since then, I've lived and worked in 4 countries, 3 continents, and 4 provinces across Canada. And that experience has given me exposure to working in different companies. Working in different organizations, both non-profit and for-profit, and also working with Canadians and immigrants alike, and just seeing opportunities for companies to benefit from that diverse background of that the immigrants bring, and also for opportunities for immigrants to restart their life in Canada or in Manitoba. It's a great fit for everyone.
That's great. Well, you've walked the walk yourself, so you certainly understand the immigration process and the feelings of immigrants when they come and the needs that they have and so on. So you've just got all the qualifications to be in the job that you are doing. Now you've been there in Brandon for 2 or 3 years, have you? Or
it's coming close to 3 years.
3 years.
Dave, yeah.
Okay, so you've met some of the other immigration people in the province, and I understand you've got together to form a council. Let's see if I've got this right. Rural Manitoba Immigrant Employment Council. So maybe tell me what that is, how it got going, what its mandate is, and talk a little bit about the council.
Absolutely. So we know that there's some great resources and supports available to assist immigrants when they settle or resettle in communities. There's Don Walmsley that runs an incredible organization here in Neepawa. For myself, I as a CEO of Westman Immigrant Services, we run a similar programs and services for immigrants in Brandon, Russellville, and Cartwright. But what we've seen a gap is supports for employers. And, right. And so, when you think about large-scale employers or small to medium enterprise employers, are there resources available for them to be able to understand how to better attract, hire, and retain immigrant talent? And we started looking nationally and recognizing that there have been, in the immigration landscape, more maturity in other communities or other provinces. Okay. And we came across immigrant employment councils that have existed, prior to us starting the Rural Manitoba Immigrant Employment Council. These existed in all other provinces except for Manitoba and Saskatchewan.
Really? Well, we were behind.
There was an opportunity here.
Yes.
And so we connected with the National Immigrant Employment Council network, and they were funded through Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada to really think about bringing together these best practices and this opportunity to share and learn, and really also adapt to local realities. And in 2022, we started the Rural Manitoba Immigrant Employment Council, specifically with the perspective of creating this neutral vehicle to support all rural Manitoba communities. And that's how we started. In 2023, we had our first Rural Manitoba Immigrant Employment Council Workforce Development Summit, and we had representation from all regions across the province. And really thinking about connecting with employers and communities to be able to support workforce development, but also to support retention as well, which is really key in rural communities.
Definitely. Well, there's 2 sides to every story, or 3 sides. I always used to tell my students there's yours, mine, and the truth. But here, there's the 2 sides. There's the immigrant population itself, and of course then the employment sector. And if they're not, encouraged and on board and supported, then it doesn't. All good intentions still might not lead to a good job placement. So that's great that you're doing that. So how wide is this rural Manitoba council that you have? How many bodies are involved in it now, and maybe you want to enlarge it as well, do you?
Yeah, so Rural Manitoba Immigrant Employment Council, or RMIC for short.
Yes.
We started an advisory committee, and we have Don Walmsley that is included as part of that committee.
Mm-hmm.
We also have representation from other communities as well. And we also have from the national network representation on that advisory committee.
Okay.
And so, this provides us the opportunity to pull in from some of those best practices that have taken place across Canada, and also bringing tools and resources that already exist so we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
By having local representation as well, we can also adapt to local needs. But whether organizations are part of the advisory committee or not, with some of the ways we communicate and work with partners in different communities, we really want to make sure that the voices of all rural communities are heard. And the summits that we have underway, that's a reflection of working with local stakeholders, local partners, to make sure that local voices are heard, and as we start thinking about supporting rural Manitoba.
Right. So how many immigrant services offices are there in rural Manitoba? Is it mostly in the south, or is there many up in the northern part of Manitoba?
So we have a settlement office in Thompson,
Okay.
as far north as Thompson, and they're part of the advisory committee as well.
Good.
And there's quite a breadth of settlement and integration services across rural Manitoba. But the thing, Dave, as I mentioned, is that the focus is on helping immigrants, or also known as the job seekers.
Yes.
And so it's really important that we do work with them. But there's other stakeholders as well that's part of that ecosystem. So that include post-secondary institutions. That could include the communities themselves, like municipalities. It could include chambers of commerce. It could include trade associations. And so that's where the Rural Manitoba Immigrant Employment Council steps in, is thinking about a way to connect all of these players or actors within this ecosystem, so that we can work in a coordinated fashion.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, you really need a coordination, because there's a lot of entities that are involved in this operation, that's for sure. You mentioned you had a summit in the summer of 23. That was the first one, I'm assuming.
That's correct.
Is this the second one?
So that first summit, as I mentioned, we had representation from all regions across the province, and employers and community stakeholders at large. But what we realized is that it's really important to provide an opportunity for individual communities to be able to share what their unique realities are and what some of those opportunities are. And so as a follow-up to that summit, with incredible support, we're now able to go into different communities and sit down with employers and sit down with community stakeholders, and really figure out the best way to support those local communities, but also think about where there's some similarities, where there's some opportunities that that could be supported from a regional perspective, and also from a rural Manitoba perspective.
So we have this summit going to take place in Neepawa 10 o'clock this morning, 10 to 2, I understand it is. What's your agenda for today? I suspect an opportunity for employers to ask questions, and you have speakers, do you, or what will happen?
So the summits, today we're going to be in Neepawa, but we actually, during the month of February and into early March, we're going to be in 13 different physical locations across rural Manitoba.
Oh, wow.
From Neepawa to Thompson to Interlake to Portage to Brandon, Steinbach, and the list goes on. So 13 physical locations, but certainly inviting communities that might be close by. So we anticipate about 23 different communities' voices are going to be heard through these summits, and the format it's about sharing tools and resources and strategies to support employers with their ability to attract, hire, and retain immigrant talent, especially with today's labor market shortages. This is obviously a priority and top of mind. And then the other aspect as well is we want to hear from employers. what may work for one employer, one industry may not necessarily work for all. And when we look at the projections of workforce shortages in certain industries, not only are there shortages now, but there's projected shortages over time to come. And so it's really important that we start figuring out what some of those realities are that local employers are facing, so that we can work with all of those different actors within those ecosystem and think about sharing some of that perspective so that we can all adapt to better support employers. The other aspect of the summits is that we are going to have community stakeholders. So, again, this could be municipalities, this could be chambers of commerce, yes. This could be settlement and integration services as well. This could be agencies that provide supports to job seekers. And so by bringing them all to the table, we're able to start unpacking better supports for retention within communities. Also thinking about, how do we support potentially entrepreneurship within communities,
yes.
right?
That's another area, of course, isn't it?
That's right, because immigrants are considered, a potential opportunity to develop new businesses or even buy businesses when it comes to succession planning, and so starting to think about how do we develop pathways that can support that.
Well, we've certainly seen that entrepreneurship here in Neepawa. Well, you're a wealth of information, Enver, and you're the guy to lead this, I'm sure. It sounds like you've really got it nailed down, and good luck today, and best wishes for a successful summit here in Neepawa. So guest on Coffee Chat has been Enver Naidoo, the CEO of the Immigrant Services in the Westman area. So thank you for coming in again, Enver. I know you're probably the keynote speaker, and you got like 10 minutes to get over there to get started. So good luck to you, and thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi everyone, welcome to Coffee Chat. I'm Liway Cabrera, your host for today. And we're back today to discuss about the Rural Manitoba Workforce Summit. And we're here now with Enver Naidoo again, and Mr. Donald Walmsley. So yeah, we would like to know what happened earlier with the summit.
Liway, firstly, thanks for having us back. I was here this morning. We arrived in Neepawa to connect with employers and community stakeholders, and this morning when I came on the show, obviously we were excited and enthusiastic about just what was going to come out of this, but it turned out to be so much better, and it was just extremely encouraging to be able to move through these summits and these conversations, and the richness of conversation that came out of that, and I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but it was better than what we could have expected.
Yeah. How about you, Don?
I have to agree. I mean, Neepawa's always stepped up in many ways for many occasions, but I was really pleased with the representation today and really excited about the engagement. People came prepared to talk about their challenges and then start talking about what gaps needed to be filled and started to kick around some ideas as a first step. I was very pleased. The people who were there, all engaged, they had some really good thoughts. It was actually, it was really, very pumped after it, yes.
So most of the participants of the summit are the employers, right? So how many, do you have an estimate of how many participants came today to?
Do you want me to answer that? I have a sense.
I think you do.
About 16.
16, okay.
Representing a number of different employers, as well as we were represented from the town. The chamber was there. It was a nice broad base.
And how was the process, that you did earlier?
Yeah, so and again, in addition to the employers and the chamber, obviously having done from the settlement sector as well was important, because we talking about this through the lens of immigrants and newcomer talent, but we're really focusing on supporting employers, right? So there's incredible resources to assist immigrant newcomer job seekers, but sometimes employers don't always know how to navigate the resume or the cover letter, or even being able to translate the skill and experience of immigrants and newcomers into their own operations. And so that creates a gap where you may end up with somebody that's overskilled and underemployed, or there may be talent already in the community, and immigrants and employers are looking for that talent, and they're struggling to make that connection. And so our process, it's very much a collaborative process. I mean, certainly, the goal is to bring in some tools and some strategies and some resources that's going to support employers today where they are. But we also want to understand, what are some of the unique realities that employers are facing. Because if you're a small business, you may not have a dedicated HR team. So it might be, the owner, doing the hiring, or even if you did have a dedicated HR team, there may be some supports that the panel that's involved in the hiring process might need. So, we don't have a cookie cutter approach here. We really wanted to come into the community and work with different employers, and then also understand at the community level, what are some of the gaps and opportunities.
Okay. So were there anything like challenges that they were able to share aside from the things that the challenges for?
Oh yes.
That yeah.
I mean, yes. A lot of it around clear information, expectations, other just very basic challenge. Of course, it's a hot topic right the way across the country in all the provinces and nationally. Housing.
Oh yeah.
How do you retain people? You need housing.
Yeah.
But yes, information is the largest thing. Whenever you're looking at challenges with things connecting, it typically boils down to communication approaches, what information is shared, when it's shared through both parties. And it was really a good opportunity for employers to explain what frustrations they have and challenges and what they'd like to do, what they can offer. It was really quite exciting to sort of, from our end as a settlement agency, is saying, what are we missing? So how do we work to make sure that information is shared? Because there's some really salient points, I thought, many of them brought up that I thought, well, we're not hitting that mark. So we started talking about some strategies going forward to make a better sort of information sharing, so newcomers have a better idea. There's stuff out there newcomers don't even know about agencies. They're just looking, there's a job posting. Well, there may be a career pathway. There may be benefits. And understanding when we work in Canada, benefits very much are part of what your salary is, because benefits save you from spending money. You have more disposable income. So there are a variety of, it was clear information is a piece. How do we disseminate information? The employers recognizing there are things they don't understand about the immigration process. So it works both ways. It was really quite, I thought, very informative. They shared without reservation. I thought that was excellent. It was good to hear. There's some positive stuff, but they're hiring and hiring newcomers, but how can they do it in a better way and more of it?
So you mentioned about the immigration process that they don't know what particular...
well, what's the difference between somebody who's on a closed work permit, an open work permit, permanent residence status, whether they're coming here under a particular visa. There are all sorts of other things that employers don't typically know. And so understanding that, so there's information we can share, as well as education for employers, understanding about when you're looking at cultures coming in, a new culture, they're coming from a different work culture. Understanding the Canadian work culture, the Canadian work culture, understanding the culture the people are coming from. So you can find that kind of blending or that kind of movement to accommodation, expectations, what's needed, a whole variety of things. And actually just improving our conversation, for example, hopefully between employers, and recognizing that agencies like our agency in Neepawa and in other communities are there to help bridge that. And we can do that, and we work together towards doing that. It was really very positive. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And also about the because yeah, some of the immigrants have the skill or the profession, yeah, but they're not. They need to study. Or is there anything that were suggested during that consultation
I'll
about
let
that?
Enver respond to that.
So, you know, I mean, that did come out where we talked a little bit about regulated professions, and in Manitoba there's 31 of them. But where we're also recognizing that there's immigrants who are also in non-regulated professions that are also struggling as well. And so, you know, that presented an opportunity where we could look at, you know, what is the common denominator? And the common denominator in this is for non-regulated professionals, is there a way that we could support employers in being able to understand how to navigate their resume, their cover letter, and really look at where those transferable skills are for their operations, or you know, for their unique needs. And then for regulated professionals, you know, certainly if they want to go back to school or look at getting that certification, that's fantastic. But if they're not able to do that, is there a way that another pathway could be created where their valuable skills and their valuable experience could still be utilized by employers? And if I had to give you an example, you know, imagine if someone was a principal in their country of origin, you know, that's a regulated profession here in Canada, and there's a good chance they probably already know they can't be a principal.
Yeah.
But when they arrive in you know, in Manitoba or in Canada, you know, in many cases the jobs they're applying for happens to be in education, because you know that's the area that they had the most expertise in. But that individual, you know, has operations experience, program development experience, operational experience. You know, that transferable skills could be highly valuable to many employers and many operations. And so, is there a way that employers can recognize that, you know, and that work needs to be done? But then at the same time, you know, is there work that could be supported to help that job seeker understand how to, what we call, repackage their resume and cover letter to present themselves to, you know, to employers, to say, look, yes, I was a principal, but here's some other ways I can complement your operation or complement your organization. And so there is a lot of work that's already been done to help job seekers, you know, but there's not enough to support employers. And it could be through training, it could be through, you know, understanding what are some of those transferable skills, and then thinking about it also for industries and for sectors, right? So yes, at that micro level, how do we help individual employers? But we know that there's industries and sectors that are going to be facing significant job shortages over time. And so how do we start proactively thinking about supporting job seekers so that they're not overskilled and unemployed, but also making sure that we're supporting employers so that they can see how those transferable skills can really align with supporting their organization.
Okay.
It's just to add to what Enver's saying, it was a real focus on newcomers, no matter how they're trained or what they've been educated on, have skill sets. It's understanding what those skill sets are, and it's understanding from the employer's perspective, what skill sets are they looking for? In one group, they were very much customer service. All right, so what does that look like? Customer service has a different set of sort of parameters. It could be approachable, it could be smiling, it could be understanding, it could be a variety of things. So knowing what the employer sees as a valuable skill then allows us to take a look at, and we do look at skill sets. Do you have skills working with people? Do you have skills working with accountancy or budgets or perhaps cash, all those kinds of things? So we better prepare the newcomer with their skill sets to match, more of a matching with the job. The job needs these kinds of skill sets. So from our perspective as an agency, we have a skills inventory we use that we're always sort of reevaluating, but using that helps us to say, oh, this employer is looking for these kinds of skill sets. Who do we have who are really showing these kinds of skill sets, and perhaps trying to make some matching, some preliminary things. Some really good ideas came out of it.
Okay. So who will keep track of that, like inventory of the people, or the inventory of the skills?
Oh, we do. For
okay.
each client who comes in who's looking for employment, we
settlement?
do in settlement.
Okay.
We do a skills inventory.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So from our perspective, I don't know if others do that, but it's a tool that's easily shareable.
Okay.
But the other critical component is from the employers, and this is where making the connection is so important, to say, we have a job opening. Now, ideally, we'd like these qualifications, but these are the skills we're looking for. We're willing to train.
Okay.
Those kinds of things are very helpful, because then we can start saying, oh, you know what? This is a possible situation. You've got skills that would work here. There's a career path in this place. You might want to consider this. At least check it out. So that we can start better matching. And employers can see people, and they can provide that kind of more information. There were a number of other little things that came out. It was really it was very much an open conversation. I don't think anybody held back. I think people talked exactly what they felt was occurring, and we must recognize that Neepawa has been very fortunate. We've had a huge immigration growth here, and we've seen it in other organizations, other businesses, entrepreneurship, but there's still more work to be done, and there's still potential to expand. Other communities are just on that interpart, right? They're just beginning. This kind of approach, this kind of rollout of support could be very instrumental in facilitating employers being able to hook up with newcomers who have skill sets that may not have thought, well, I was an engineer, I guess I can't be an engineer, I guess I'll do an entry-level job, where somebody might say, hey, you've got we could use you in something, and you may never even thought of it. So it's also opening people's eyes, giving people options that they never would consider before.
And to add to that, Liway, I mean, from developing that database around skills, while it's happening with job seekers, but across rural Manitoba, I can't say to you it's happening with employers, right? And so that's where we're stepping in, is to start figuring out what is some of the challenges that employers are facing, from small businesses to large scale businesses, and then looking at it also across different sectors, so that we can, through partnership, speed up that ability for employers and job seekers to be matched. Through that process, we're going to improve retention in rural Manitoba communities. We're going to improve retention across Manitoba, because if job seekers are improving their employment outlook, they're more likely to stay in those communities. And then obviously for employers, when they have those operations being fairly smoothly taken care of, it improves the economic outlook for those communities as well. So it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, because one of the issues, I think, in rural communities that I see, because some who would like to level up or need to go to to go to Brandon, to Winnipeg to study, is there any
any training?
Any tip training that would be? I heard about the nursing here at an ACC. Are there any other opportunities for there to level up their skill or?
Well, I know Don might be able to talk about this, but what I can talk about, just broadly speaking, I think one of the things that we see with these summits, it's, yes, we have employers, we have community stakeholders, but we also have many others that are supporting this ecosystem of, including, agencies that provide training, right? Or, agencies that provide subsidized training, or, vocational schools or post-secondary schools. So these summits are really about creating an ecosystem where we can understand some of the issues, and then we can better respond to it, and make sure that if we don't have that training, how do we develop it? And by understanding those needs, either at a community level or at a regional level, or even across the province, it allows different stakeholders to come to the table and figure out how to move this forward a lot quicker.
Yeah.
I can completely agree. That's an element. It's an element that needs to be on the table. It's part of it. We recognize it's there. As it grows, what these kinds of summits are doing, because they're the initial stage, is bringing that information. And that was raised. What about? How do we connect with schools and what's happening in training and other programs? And I think it leads to that broader conversation, saying, so if we get a nice sort of comfortable or functional mechanism between employers and recruitment, of newcomers.
Okay.
We talk about that leveling up. Well, we're situated now. We have that with that LPN program, but there's more. There could be truck driving. There could be bookkeeping. There could be it's endless where we could start looking at how do we, as Enver was saying, make use of some of the free training that's out there. There are government organizations that will provide some free basic training, taking a look at how we can maximize that, making sure that employers in any communities in rural Manitoba know they can access this. And so this is part of it. It's like we're gathering a ball of fluff or lint, and we're accumulating as we go along, because part of the process is we need to analyze. So what's common? What are we needing to do? Is there a lot of disparity between communities, or is there a lot of similarity? How do we functionally work with this? Who needs to be players, and continue to build on this? This is the first step of a long-term process, but we're all in it to see functionality. Employers successfully employing newcomers who are successfully integrated into a job. Bottom line. And we're targeting rural Manitoba.
Congratulations for and thank you for doing that. So what's the next step after, or there anything else that you would like to add about the result of the before we go to the next step?
I'd say today wasn't just about gathering information. Today wasn't just about understanding gaps and challenges, but today was also about what resources can we provide employers today, right? What supports could we provide employers? What tools? And because we're part of a national network, we're part of the Immigrant Employment Council network. There's a significant amount of resources that we're able to tap into from other provinces, and also develop local solutions here as well in collaboration with employers. And so, we're confident enough to say that employers left today, and that was our goal, knowing that there were some practical solutions they could implement tomorrow. However, having said that, many of these labor market shortages, they're going to be around for a while. We have, aging population, we have a skill gap in Manitoba, and so we need to really think about a strategic approach to not only implement solutions today, but also plan for tomorrow.
Whatever said is exactly what we need to be looking at. We hear a lot of talk about aging populations. We're going to need 10,000 trucking jobs. We're going to need X. We're going to need Y as it goes along within the next 5 to 10 years. But there is no strategy. So if we start at a local level, we start where we can just start building strategies. It will, I believe, it will incrementally grow to start taking a look at some of those larger perspectives. We often hear about challenges. We don't always hear about how do we make it work. And as Enver said, the goal was for employers to walk away with something tangible, not just a thought or a notion or an idea, but actually something tangible, and start building from there. And it's going to be done from within the communities. This isn't an individual approach, this is a community approach, and that was strongly emphasized. And most rural communities look at things from a community perspective. They don't tend to look at things in silos. So it's really good, I think, that we're looking at this initiative focusing on rural Manitoba. It's an opportunity here, and I think people are keen for it, and they're facing challenges now. And we know that there's going to be a change in available employee situation going forward. We need to address that now. We can't wait until it's a crisis and then expect bailout. If we help people be functional and develop their own skills and strategies around employment, supporting employers, then the other hopefully will start taking care of itself.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have anything? I think we're running out of time, so maybe you have any final message for?
Well, I think as Don mentioned, this is the beginning of the journey, and we're very excited to continue this. Today, the summit was in Neepawa. We're going to be going as far north as Thompson. We're going to be, in multiple rural communities over the course of the month. And we plan on coming back. We plan on, bringing all of that rich data and and continuing these conversations and thinking about what other solutions can be implemented, today, tomorrow, and in the long run. And it's optimistic times, challenging times, but optimistic times, because Canada's having the highest immigration levels it's ever seen.
Yeah.
And so it's really important for rural communities to strategically and proactively think about how do we retain that talent, so that it can help grow our local economy, but also support the rich fabric of our society. So we're not doing it alone. We're really appreciative of all those great partnerships and conversations that took place today, and we're looking forward to more to come.
Copy what he says, and I was really pleased with the response of the community, the employment community in Neepawa. There was a really good conversation. Some excellent stuff was said. So the next plan for me is, I think, a trip to Bermuda. Why work? No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding about Bermuda. But it was very good. It was nicely done. We're very pleased, and I thought good engagement, and people are excited. And now it's a matter of trying to put money where the mouth is. See about some tangible stuff.
Yeah, okay. So no plans yet for the next one, or okay.
Yeah, I think following the summits, we do have some other initiatives underway. We've got some job fairs that's going to be coming up, both in person as well as virtual job fairs. One of the strategies that we're taking, which is we believe is different, is that we're going to be looking at a segmented job fair. So, step one, understanding what different employers are looking for. What are those different skill gaps? What are those different jobs or industries that are recruiting? We're going to make sure we put the right job seeker in front of the right employer. And so it's going to be a better return on investment for both job seekers and employers, because we've taken the time to understand what are the unique needs of each employer, and then working with partners, trying to figure out where is that immigrant talent, and then pairing them up is going to be a better opportunity. There are other things as well that's going to be fairly exciting. You've got to come to one of our summits. We'll tell you about it. But if any employer can't make it to any summit, certainly we're working with lots of partners within their community. I mean, they can reach out to their local chambers of commerce. They can reach out to the economic development agencies. They can reach out to the settlement and integration agencies that are in those communities. And they'll be able to make sure that they get connected to the Rural Manitoba Immigrant Employment Council.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you so much for doing this. This is a really wonderful effort for the immigrants. So thank you so much. So that's it for today. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you again next time.